Hey everyone, welcome to our Ask a Master IEP Coach Q&A. I'm really excited to have with me Jessica and Larina today. They'll tell you a little bit about themselves in just a minute. For those of you that have not joined us for a Q&A before, just know you can put your questions below. There is nothing off topic that we won't get you answers for either here or we'll follow up directly with you. So you want to talk about inclusion, you want to talk about bullying, you want to talk about placements, data, IEP goals, teamwork, home to school communication, you name it. As a master IEP coach, we're working towards solutions for all of those for every child. We work on the foundation of every child being prepared for further education, employment, and independent living to the best of their ability. For those of you that don't know, my name is Catherine Witcher, and I've been working professionally in the field for over 20 years. I have a brother who has Down syndrome, and I was inspired to become a special education teacher because I watched my family navigate through the system, and it was a struggle. It wasn't pretty in the 80s, and you know what? It's still a struggle today. But I became a teacher, and I thought, I'm just going to solve all the problems from the inside of my classroom. I'll just make it all good by being the best teacher that I can be. And here's what happened. I figured out that the system itself has some real struggles. There's some red tape. There's just some things that teachers have to deal with too. So what ended up happening is I was teaching by day, I was coaching parents by night. Then I was helping parents bring solutions to IEP tables. Then districts said, wow, these solutions make sense. Can you come in and train our teachers? And that's where I kind of ended up here with all of you, is working with parents, teachers, and therapists on building IEPs that work for the real world in the classroom, in the school system, and the real world after school. So I want to go ahead and jump in and have Jessica tell us a little bit about who you are. And let's jump in with an IEP tip, Jessica, that you know is important for the entire IEP team.
Awesome. Well, I'm Jessica Kong. I live in the beautiful state of Alaska. I have a younger child that is on an IEP. My oldest son is on a 504. I am also a special needs sibling, and I am a registered behavior technician. So I've seen a lot of different aspects of the special needs world. And I was really inspired by my brother as well. But my kids really pushed me to get into this and make sure that I'm knowledgeable for myself, but for them as well. I would say a very big, important tip for everyone to remember is weekly communication. You have an entire IEP team, someone from the district, your children have multiple teachers, music, PE, general education, if they're in the gen ed classroom, special education teacher. You need to make sure that you're staying in contact and that the people that you're speaking to know that you're open to communication as well. Otherwise, how are you guys going to know if you're on the same page or not, if you're only meeting once a year?
I think that's so important too, that you said it's important for the team to know that you're open to communication, that it just doesn't have to be happy faces and sad faces. It doesn't have to be a good day and a bad day. It doesn't have to be these big kind of lump sums of what's happening. Like, let's really talk about it. It really seems like your child is tired at 2 p.m. How can we adjust the schedule? Is there something, can we put a snack time in there? Can we, is there something going on at home? Have you noticed that your child's fighting a cold? And, it's important for the team to know that they can trust the parent, even if the information isn't perfect every week. And it's important for the parent to know that they can have that open communication without micromanaging. So we're not talking about micromanaging communication. We're talking about making sure a child is successful in their school day and accessing everything they need with the support of their team. And Jessica, I know that you are you're super passionate about that. And I can see why, but IEP and a 504. So you haven't mentioned that before in that way. So I think it's important for us to just kind of point out that if somebody has any questions about the difference between an IEP and a 504, ask below, and Jessica will get to you later today or tomorrow, because those are two very different pieces of paper that do very different things. And I know that I get a lot of questions about who gets what and how does this all work and can you have both? So there's all these questions and things that happen. So please, if you guys have questions about a 504 or an IEP, make sure you put that down there for Jessica. Let's see, we have Cindy that's watching. Hey, Cindy. I believe Cindy is signed up to be a master IEP coach or recently came into the network. I can't keep everybody's name straight yet. I'm getting there. All right, Larina, go ahead and jump in with us. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what your tip is for today.
Hi, everyone. So glad you are here with us today. My name is Larina Pierce, and I live in just north of Charlotte, North Carolina, with my 2 girls, my husband. My oldest daughter has Down syndrome, and it's been through her life experiences and then her school experiences that I have grown into my current role as an IEP consultant, serving Greater Charlotte and honestly the rest of North Carolina if they need me. So, as this school year has been starting everywhere incrementally, I've been thinking a lot about mindset, and I have a tip that sounds pretty obvious, but maybe worth thinking about a little more deeply. And it is for parents and educators alike, try your best to have an open mind about the upcoming school year. Even if it's the same school, same team you had last year, perhaps more importantly, if you have changed schools, you have a brand new team, maybe you're carrying a little bit of mistrust from past experiences. I see a lot of different things that shape parent and teacher mindsets. So I'm just out here saying if everyone can be as open-minded as possible, things will likely go better overall.
And I love the way that you say open mind. So you're not saying that that everybody has to jump in with full on trust with everybody else. Like that's not realistic, right? Like you're not saying, so you were burned before, but don't worry, it's a fresh start. You can have 100% trust. Like if there's one thing that I know about every master IEP coach that I've trained, I've worked with through the mentorship is that, we're not all or nothing. We're in the real world of, maybe you've been burned before as a teacher or as a parent. Maybe you had a great year and you are, trying to carry that over, but right. It's not an all or nothing.
It's not. And I think these IEP teams have to go the distance of usually at least one whole school year, if not more. And the relationship building piece is so dependent on everyone coming to the table with an open mind, which doesn't mean, parents, that you don't have goals for your child and that you're not passionate about your child's education. And for educators, it doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers. It just means everybody's going to try to work, in a collaborative way, finding those.
Don't shut down, right? Don't shut down. Don't shut down.
Sometimes the out of the box stuff comes from our open-mindedness. So.
Yes. All right. So first of all, let's say hi to Amanda. She's commenting below there. Tessa has jumped on. Say hi to her. Jennifer has a question for us. She says, my son is going into middle school next year. Don't you love how us parents, like we're like, okay, great. This school year started. Like I'm already worried about the next school year. Right. So
yeah.
Tip number 1, breathe, right? Like take a breath. Okay, what now? Now let's make sure this year's going well, but okay, there are some things that for sure sometimes we need a year or more to get ready for some upcoming milestones. So here's what she's worried about. She's preparing for she says, and I'm actually going to address this one, the transitional IEP. So it's very important to understand that what Jennifer is talking about as a mom, as a transitional IEP into middle school means a transition from elementary to middle school. Many times what it means, if you're speaking IEP language, if we're speaking our jargon and we say transitional IEP, we're talking about when that child's at that age 16, minimum 8, well, that could be the maximum age 16 that it starts. It can start before that, but a transition plan that works towards those independent living and work skills, that's called your transition plan inside of your IEP. So I just want to clarify that because we have people that watch from all around the states. So a lot of times we get questions from people who want to be master IEP coaches, and they say, would this work for me in my state? Yes, because we work on issues like this of like misunderstandings of jargon or bringing new solutions. So it's important to know transitional IEP, she means from elementary to middle, not a transition plan. She says, help, I'm worried about the changing of classes, changing clothes for PE, and bullies. This mama has a lot of things on her mind. So I'm throwing this question out to you guys. Does anybody want to jump in on that? Do you want me to jump in on that? Where are you guys at? All right, go, Larina. Yes.
Okay. So when I hear any level of anxiety, I am a firm believer that getting into the school building when it's appropriate and time and meeting with the new admins and new teachers who will have your child and expressing your concerns maybe well in advance of that first IEP meeting, that would be my recommendation as a consultant, just so at least you've said it out loud to them and you know somebody's hearing you when they have the space to process what you're saying, and then you can start from there on working on like an actual concrete plan. And also I would just say know that those concerns are common. You're definitely not alone in that. I've helped many families with that particular transition from elementary to middle. And with the right series of meetings, it can really go great. So be hopeful too.
I love that. So be hopeful, and go see the program that your child is going to be considered for, because you don't know what to plan if you don't know what you're planning for. Like we all know, changing for PE happens. We all know changing for classes happens. But I've been in enough middle schools and high schools to know that changing of classes is different in every building. So you cannot plan for that if you don't know. The other thing is that the child can go into that environment too before it's time. So figuring out that type of transition of how are we going to get the child all set to go. Jessica, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh yeah, definitely. My oldest son is in middle school, so I've definitely already been thinking about that, even though my youngest one with the IEP is only in the 3rd grade. So I completely understand the whole thinking ahead. So transitions, especially with like the bell ringing, different classrooms and all that sort of thing, you can discuss with the school way in advance. You can go ahead and send them an email. I would make sure that it's an email so it's documented. Make sure that the questions that you're asking are very specific to your child, because what your concerns are about the transition could be different for each person. Like, is my child going to have enough time to go to their locker? Will your child have a locker? Do they have an aide? Do they have somebody that will be assisting them? And that can look different for every single child and their unique needs.
Absolutely. So Jennifer also, she just followed up. So she's watching. So Jennifer, we're glad that you asked this question. It's so valid, the way that you're seeing, the way that you're feeling, the things that you need to see, the things that you need to do. And she says, what are the right series of meetings? Because Larina, you said that, and she said, what's the right? So there's 2 things, Jennifer, that I'm going to make sure that you get underneath here, because that series of meetings is something we need to talk about more in depth, outside of a Q&A. So there's 2 places to go. One is inside of the special education inner circle. So that's an online training place where I'm working with you in a group and I'm giving you trainings, and you can do Q&As and we can help walk you through that series of meetings. However, you may want to work one-on-one with someone. And Larina said something that connected with you. You're saying like, okay, what is this series of meetings? So Larina, will you make sure, I'm going to make sure that Jennifer gets the special education inner circle, which, by the way, all of the master IEP coaches are also in the inner circle. We're there as a team. We're working together. And then make sure that you reach out to her, please, and let her know directly how to get in touch with you. I'm going to just encourage everyone that if you are hearing something from Jessica or Larina that is really touching your heart, it's in your gut feeling that you'd like to talk to them, to please go ahead and reach out to them below in the comments, because this is what they do. They have invested their time and energy, their days, their weeks, their months into being a master IEP coach, so we can have this positive wave of change and parents and teachers all prepared to work together and do this. So don't hesitate to do that. All right, we've got some other questions. We've got Jane. She says, my son is in kindergarten, autism, nonverbal, sensory needs. He has had an IEP since he turned 3. We are in Illinois and now in Arizona. I feel like we have been very lucky with the school system so far. We have had great communication with our teams. I feel like his goals are appropriate, but I always feel like I should be doing more. You guys ever felt like that as a parent? We're right there with you, Jane. We get it. They always have the goals written, by his teachers and therapists. I've always agreed because they sound appropriate. But how do I really know what good goals are? How do I know what a natural next step is and to expect what should I be expecting my son to learn? I hope this makes sense. So first of all, Jane, it makes total sense. 100% total sense. Like I have an entire training inside of the special education inner circle that's called IEP goal writing for the real world because it's what makes sense. Okay, so this sounds good, but sometimes good isn't good enough. We need to get to that core of this is good and it makes sense for where my child's going and what they're doing. So I would encourage you, Jane, is I always look at the IEP and say, is this a skill that I use as an adult? Because it's hard for us to predict what a child's going to do next. Like we don't know a child's potential and we don't want to limit a child's potential. There's so many assumptions that are made when certain labels are put on a child or verbal, nonverbal, what's happening. So we always want to assume that a child's going to go much further than we could ever imagine. So that means really looking at, does this skill make sense? Is it something that I would use as an adult? So, all right, let's keep that in. Yes, even at kindergarten, you can ask those things because I've seen some kindergarten IEP goals that I say, there's no way. Like you ever went to school and they said, you're thinking, I'm never going to use this skill. And you were right. We don't want those in the IEP. So Jane, I'm going to encourage you to come into the special education inner circle. And then I'm going to encourage you to reach out to Jessica or Larina and have them do an IEP. You guys call them a little bit different depending on who does what, because they all have independent practices, but like an IEP checkup, just have somebody look through and spend some time. Do you guys have any, kind of mom to mom advice or IEP consultant to mom advice on that whole goals and wondering, should I be doing more?
I would definitely say that if you feel that you should be doing more, a lot of that might be because you need a little more data to look at for your child's goals. And sometimes that's data that you might be collecting on your own at home with your child. And some of that is data that should be collected by the school. It states in the IEP what they're supposed to be collecting data on, how often, and who's responsible for it. So you can always follow up. If everything's checking out and you like what you see, then I would just take a deep breath and enjoy the fact that everything's going okay.
Ride that wave right now, right? Larina,
Exactly.
Do you have anything for us?
I would just add that when I heard her say, I feel like I could be doing more, which is a common sentiment among all special needs parents everywhere. We can technically always be doing more. Sometimes that means you may want to do different. You're just feeling like you're in a rut, or you have goals for your child that you haven't found the conviction to bring to the IEP table yet, maybe because you don't know the whole scope, as I did not, of the type of goals that you can include in an IEP. So it's a great topic, and Catherine does have a very helpful presentation in the circle for you if you decide to go that route.
Yeah, so I love kind of the flow of like, come into the inner circle, get all the information, consume it. And then if you need that next level of like, okay, great, now I understand it, can somebody do this and take me to the next level, then that's going to be your master IEP coach. We have another question. Yasodera says, hi everyone, thank you for hosting this Q&A for parents. My daughter is 10 years old and the school has denied transportation because we live less than 2 miles from the school. Can you tell me what I should do? So we're going to assume, she doesn't say my daughter has an IEP, but I'm going to assume her daughter has an IEP, but is not meeting the standard criteria for getting on a bus. Any of you guys want to take this? Otherwise, I'm going to jump in on it.
I was going to say I would write an email. And in Alaska, we actually have a bus barn and the school, and they're completely separate here. Mm-hmm. So depending on who is in charge of transportation, I would contact them, make sure that you copy the school and the bus barn or whatever it's called in your state, and state the reasons why you believe that your child needs the transportation, how it would help your child, and ask why it is that they can't make an exception. They need to list the reasons down in writing so that way you have a starting place to have a discussion with them.
Yeah. So, and that's part of, all right, here we go. This is where we say we're not lawyers, okay? At practicing special education law. We are not lawyers. However, there is a space, we like to point you in the direction to look. So, because all of this is based on a foundation, we're not making, this stuff up when it comes to your child needs to be prepared for further education, employment, independent living. That's in the purpose of findings of ideal law. You can read that piece. There's another piece that talks about transportation, that transportation is included as part of your special education services. Now, we're looking at, does this need to be part of the IEP document that says in order for this child to access her education safely as her same age peers, does she need to have this transportation? Larina, do you have anything else to add in on that piece?
I would just echo what Jessica said, just get in there and have them answer, if they won't do anything else, why they don't think it's appropriate or necessary for her.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot as Master IEP coaches, right? Like find out the why. Like you can't get to a yes if you don't know why they're saying no. So we're going to assume that the reason they're saying no is because it's less than 2 miles. But we have to have it clearly written on what the reasons are. And I'm going to use that access to education safely as her same age peers has access to it. So you have to really declare that I'm just going to call it out, that you're pulling the IEP card, right? You're like, nope, we're on an IEP and my child can't access this way. And here are the three reasons why it's unreasonable to consider that. So I would assume that there are deficits listed in the IEP that would correlate to why it's unsafe or unreasonable for her to take, to walk instead of take a bus. All right. So let's see. We have Patricia, you're very welcome. She just said, thank you. All right. Amanda said, how do I encourage teachers to trust my child's ability and let him have his middle school experiences and trust that the IEP has appropriate accommodations instead of him just keeping him in the special ed self-contained classroom? So let's see. How do we encourage teachers to trust, have some middle school experiences and not be just in the self-contained classroom? I'm gonna pass it over to Jessica just for a second. Jessica, can you touch on some data? Because I know that you'll say that they're data.
Yes, definitely. So number one, what I like to do with my son is I create an all about me page, and it tells the teachers exactly what works for him, what doesn't work for him. And I also send that to them in an email, even though I give them a copy as well, so that way they have access to it always. I let them know that, I am available for any questions, comments, or concerns. But the most important thing is that an IEP puts your child in the least restrictive environment. So if you feel that your child is capable of being outside of a special education classroom, then you need to start that discussion and let them know, my child can do these things at home. These are the things that I've seen him do. These are the things that we do outside in the real world. He can do these things inside the school classroom.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into, I'm going to say, the inclusion training inside of the inner circle, where I talk about inclusion is an experience, not a place, right? Mm-hmm. But we need to create those experiences. So maybe it is about going to, reading class, but it's not about being there for the group lesson, where maybe that language or reading lesson is not at a level that, and it's not that it can't be modified. It's not that we can't do all of those things, but I want a child to have these middle school experiences at first where they're going to feel very successful, where they're going to build that confidence up. So a lot of times there's a 40-minute period, and 20 minutes of is direct instruction. Who falls asleep during direct instruction sometimes? Okay, everybody does, right? But maybe at that last 20 minutes when they're doing small group work and they're having all of these other kind of reading or language experiences, that would be a great time for a child to integrate. And a lot of times it goes the opposite. They're thinking, oh, we can't do these real middle school experiences or high school experiences because they're going to walk into the class, they're going to get frustrated, they're going to be bored, and then they can't participate in the second half of the class because they've kind of, worn themselves out trying to keep it together during that first half of class. So a lot of times I like to reverse that process. And we actually start moving a child into class towards the end of a class period, maybe that second half of the class period, and kind of backing into that experience. And I always say, and we won't get full into detail on how it all kind of flows and works. It's one of my favorite things to do. But when it comes to finding these options, is think about how you go to Starbucks. You go to Starbucks, you've got your bag, you've got maybe your money or your snack with you, whatever that is. You've got your phone, your technology and that, and you walk into Starbucks and you figure out, where am I going to sit? And am I going to collaborate with somebody? Am I going to talk to somebody? What's my experience going to be in here? And a lot of times there's those opportunities in regular ed, classrooms where a child with very diverse needs can come in and have that side-by-side real classroom experience that doesn't have to be ridiculously modified, because they get to I bring my own book to Starbucks, right? Mm-hmm. Why would they not bring their own book to this experience to have that? So that's a real world experience for going in. Larina, do you have something before, and then we're going to wrap this up real soon. We've got a lot of questions. So I'm just going to encourage Jessica and Larina to please go, and I will put the Inner Circle link down there for everybody, because I encourage them to come in work with us there. But then go ahead and just make sure that you guys put your contact information below, because we've got lots of questions that are happening. So I'm super excited about that. But about the inclusive experiences, Larina, do you have something to add for us?
Only that I'm also a mom. So I'm always, again, trying to be open-minded. So I'm hearing you talk about having the child go in at the end, toward the end of the session. So I'm just, that's good advice.
I'm not sure. Jessica, can you hear Larina? She kind of went out for me.
I could only hear the very end where you said you thought it was good advice.
In and out there.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
how's it doing now? Is it okay now?
I think so.
Okay. So yes, I was just saying that I'm always in a dual role as mom of a child who has special needs, but this is also what I do as my practice. And so when you were talking about having kids go in toward the end of the class when maybe the direct instruction is not so intense and over their heads, I just thought, as a mom, I'm making mental notes that that's a great idea. And I'll be talking to the school team about that later this week. So thank you for that.
You know what? And that's what it's all about. It's all about bringing these creative solutions and saying, like, okay, great. So, science instruction might be difficult to really, engage in for 20 minutes of direct instruction for that. But learning teamwork and working in a lab and learning to wait your turn and share and take turns, whatever that lab is, and ask for help and to do all those things are things that are usually in the IEP. To learn how to do that. So why not go ahead and apply those in a natural setting within the school that actually that mimics a work situation, because we don't sit at work and learn for 20, 30 minutes at a time. We go into work, we're expected to work with people, to ask for help when we need it, to wait our turn, to share, to do all those things. So, all right, tons of questions that are happening down below. I actually just went ahead and shut off my phone there because they're just like rolling in. So I'm going to touch base with everybody. So if you asked a question, no worries. Larina and Jessica will be in there sometime today or tomorrow answering those. I'll get you the link to the Special Education Inner Circle. I want to thank everybody for being here. If you are thinking about becoming a master IEP coach, if you have watched to the end, first of all, you should be a master IEP coach, because then you get to hang out with us. So say that you want to be a master IEP coach, I will get you the link so you can get ready for our next mentorship. It only runs 2 or 3 times a year. So you'll want to jump in on that. For everybody else, I'll see you inside of the Inner Circle. Reach out to Jessica and Larina, and we'll see you guys later.